So, so the agenda is that I will talk about Vocarium for the first 15 minutes to just give you an overview for the new people here there. But the primary purpose of this webinar is to talk about our Jupyter Elite. So David will go in and do a demo, and hopefully it will take about 30 minutes or so. And then we will open it for a Q&A. And throughout the presentation, please go ahead and ask your questions either through the chat or Q&A, and hopefully one of us will respond to it. So just really quickly, what Vocarium, we are in the business of providing virtual lab. And what we mean by virtual lab is a fully managed workspace. And by fully managed, we mean that we take care of tools and packages. We take care of provisioning, which means sometimes it means that you have to worry about scaling, and when the user goes away, to terminate the resource. For a lot of these labs, you can put fairly sophisticated guardrails around budget and policies that especially becomes relevant for our expensive labs like cloud labs, or when we are launching VPCs, virtual machines, or HPCs. Persistent work area, I mean, that's a big deal for all of our labs to make sure that the user's work area persists. And so when the learner comes back, they can start from where they had left off. Deliver data. So a lot of times you want to not only provide an environment for the user, but you want to provide them a data set to work on. And sometimes these data sets can be fairly large. And we manage identity and roles. So for example, if you're deploying it in a classroom, then there will be roles like teachers and graders and learners, and then there are admin roles and similar roles for other use cases. So this is what we mean by a virtual lab. So just go into a little bit of detail, the labs that we have deployed right now are some of the examples here. Data science is, again, super popular, basically Jupyter and Notebook and RStudio. Programming labs, so lots and lots of different languages being learned, like Python, Java, C++, Go, Scala, and PHP, etc. Windows desktop, so this is kind of more of a VDI solution where you can deploy tools and then run a Windows machine. Big data, so there are a few classes which are, and this is where our largest data set get deployed, where they're running Hadoop clusters as a part of their learning experience. So we will actually manage a Spark cluster. Machine learning, by machine learning, we mean that if you want to give the users not only an ML framework, but also a dedicated GPU, so that's also possible. One of the largest deployments that we have, apart from Jupyter Notebooks and Vocarium, is actually our AWS Cloud Lab. Thanks to our partnership with Amazon, there we deliver AWS Cloud Labs to hundreds of thousands of learners worldwide, where they get a completely controlled work account, AWS account, without entering their credit card. But these you can constrain by policies and budgets and time. Databases, there are 4 databases that we natively make it available. So with a single click of the button, you can provide the learner credentials to their own container, which runs either MySQL, Postgres, Neo4j, or DynamoDB. Full stack labs, these are delivered through our containers, where especially in the professional space, the learners are learning things like Jenkins or CI/CD and Git and stuff like that. So that's a big deal. Cybersecurity labs are a big deal. So you can deliver a personal cyber range to the learners. Then robotics, by robotics, we mean that we support natively ROS with a browser-based robots. So this is a class which, for example, Columbia has been running on edX for a long time, with thousands of learners that come in and then learn ROS programming. Kubernetes cluster and Docker cluster. Essentially, in this particular case, if you're teaching your learners how to do, say, Kubernetes or Docker administration, then we will deliver a network of, say, 3 virtual machines, like 1 master and 2 workers. And you can do any configuration, but that's the most popular. Azure Lab, so just like our AWS Cloud Lab, we can deliver a managed credential to an Azure environment, for the learners, and game engine. So, if your learners are learning how to design sort of game engines using Unity and Unreal, we can deliver that through our Dockers. So just a little bit about the technology underneath it. So we use the right virtualization to deliver the most cost-effective solution and the best experience to the learner. So essentially, there are four technologies. One is manage applications, so things like Jupyter Notebooks or maybe a programming IDE or RStudio will deliver it as a, we have as a managed application, or Docker containers when you need, for example, the learners to have a sudo access to their own machine, then we'll deliver Docker containers. And some things like, for example, cybersecurity, like Cyber Range or Kubernetes, where you might want to mix Windows and Linux machines, or you might need to have the access to the kernel level, then we'll deliver it as a managed virtual machines. And cloud labs, as I was mentioning earlier on, that the cloud labs are giving you a credential to a managed cloud environment. So this is again the big deal here is to make sure that the user does not leave a machine running or does something which maybe launches a too big a machine, and so that's all continuously managed through all sorts of technology behind it, which includes things like CloudWatch events or policies and SCPs. Then if those are things which Vocarium manages for you, but let's assume that you have your own images, or if you need to manage for your learners or for your research environment, or maybe for another use case, you need to bring your own license servers because you're managing a commercial tool, or you need to bring your own AMIs. Then the most of the energy, a lot of our energy this year has been going into developing this product like our custom data center, where this is a single tenant multi-region data center for a commercial tool. So you can bring your own image, you can bring your own Docker container, and the big deal is that this is fully isolated in your own VPC, in your own Amazon account. So there is no, so you can deliver it fairly securely. And one of the values that you can get you can launch your own instance types, or you can launch VPC, and you can share the data with, and we'll manage all the identity, budgeting, and auto scaling behind the scenes. So hopefully with a single click, you can get your own data center. This was our product. These virtual labs were built for education and research. So especially which means that at least around the education part, there's a very sophisticated assessment, for example, infrastructure built in. So you can do auto grading, manual grading, peer reviews. There are some gamification available, for example, leaderboard. You can, there's a built-in plagiarism detection, team projects, and hopefully we'll touch on some of them via the demo, but you can always contact us if you want to learn more about sort of the features. And these capabilities are available for all of our labs. So another thing which we have been which we deployed last year, because as more and more of we're deploying more and more different kinds of labs, then we realized that we needed to build a sort of a new interface where we bring in all of this together in a consistent way. So this is kind of our elite architecture, where there is essentially there is storage, the application, and then there is the auxiliary information around this lab. For example, it could be some grades, or it could be a documentation, maybe a multiple choice test. So which we deliver it across all of our labs that you are seeing. So we are moving more and more of our applications and of our labs to this elite architecture. So in the last webinar, we had talked about it around the general coding environment, but today, hopefully, you will see how Jupyter is working in our elite architecture. So as I was saying earlier on, at the highest level, there's on the left-hand panel, there's a file system where you can see You can deliver read-only resources which are delivered to you. Then there's a actual work area where you work on, and the submissions, which are, again, as you can see, there are locks around it. So that means, these are read-only. And then in the middle, essentially, is your workspace. On the right-hand side is the auxiliary space for information. In this particular case, this documentation. And that is, you can control all this through that what panel do you want to see to the show to the learner. And the top bar, there are controls like when you when it makes sense. If there's a session timer, you can start a lab, end a lab, and those things depend on what your configuration is, as well as whether it makes sense for this particular lab or not. But that's kind of our Elite sort of interface. So as I was saying, this is the source panel, for example. In this case, this is the console, there's a file tree, and this is a multi-cloud file tree. So as you know, you'll notice that what the storage which is backing it could be in the object store, or could be on a file system, depending on the particular lab. And then the nav bar. Once again, there are, and we will go through it, so I will not, you can, as when you're configuring the lab, you can control all of this. So, and you can deploy it in all the different use cases. The big ones are, of course, the classes and MOOCs. So we have a large number of classes running with hundreds of thousands of learners, which are using our labs on MOOC. So we had to make sure it works at scale. In fact, this last week we launched a pretty interesting class on MOOC called with deep learning. I think David can talk about it a little bit more detail. Today we are launching in ACCA or edX. I believe there's some account, business analytics, for example, was launched in MOOC. Skill-based exams. So for example, Cloudera, we deliver the environment for the certifications, and lots of exams are being done on Vocarium. Especially last year, it all got accelerated. You can deliver for things like training boot camps, hackathons. So maybe a single day you need to have a pop-up lab, which at the end of the day, it's all taken down. Research, again, there's a lot of focus on being able to, and that was the custom data center. So where you can share a data center with your colleagues in a managed environment. Syndication. So there's if your use case is that if you're delivering content, you're creating one group creates a content and then is deployed to maybe instructors, maybe hundreds or thousands of instructors. So there is actually the whole workflow around it. And then you can deliver a virtual campus lab, which is essentially giving learners access to just their own workspace. So at this point, what I would do is I'd hand it to David for the demo.
Hi, so I believe I am sharing. Can I get confirmation in chat? Great. So as Sanjay mentioned, I'm David Lin with Vocarium, here to demonstrate the new Jupyter Elite IDE. Jupyter Elite retains all the features from our original Jupyter Notebook implementation, including being a fully managed notebook in the cloud, assignment and submission management, and then also grading, which includes automated and manual feedback. Beyond that, Jupyter Elite provides you with much greater control over a learner's experience, including the ability to customize the page layout and deliver new functionality. So on this page here, I'm signed in as an instructor. As you'll see here, we've got an assignment, and this has a part, and the part is using our original Jupyter Notebook implementation. Okay, and so in the second tab here is a learner. I'm signed in as a learner for this assignment, and this is using the view of the original Jupyter Notebook IDE. And this is preloaded with starter code. It also includes a set of buttons across the top here to help with submitting the assignment and retrieving grades for the assignment. I'm going to switch back over to the Teacher tab and change the lab type to use Jupyter Elite. Okay, and when I do that, you'll see that we have a bunch of new options down below here, which appeared. Okay, and it includes options for panels, so we can toggle on some options. We're going to toggle on the nav bar. Some controls, we're toggling the ability to reset the assignment back to the starter state. Then there's also some informational panels that we will toggle on, and going to save it. And let's see what it looks like from the student view. So back to the student view, if I do a reload of the page, now we are launching the Jupyter Elite interface. As you can see, it looks very similar to the original interface. One main difference is that we're also providing instructional material on the right panel, as Sanjay mentioned. Okay, and so if you're familiar with our Vocarium Elite IDE, you'll know that we can deliver instructions with a markdown file. And so that's what we're showing over here. One of the new features that I want to point out is that we're now supporting Jupyter extensions. So for example, we can click this button here and automatically have an index to different sections of this notebook. As a student, I can also add other extensions too. So for example, I can go into Edit, nbextensions, and I can turn on, for example, a scratch pad. I can toggle line numbers. Okay, switch this off and reload the page. And we can turn off the table of contents. You'll see as we go and see some code blocks. Turn this on, you'll have some line numbers. If I hit Command B or Control B, I'll have a very convenient scratch pad here. So I can run some little experiments over here if I wanted to, without going right into the notebook. So that's pretty convenient. You can also expand a page if you are using a smaller desktop and you want to expand the view so you can use more of the real estate. And then also we are added the ability to provide both manual and automatic feedback directly into a student notebook. So let's go ahead and complete this assignment and run a submission. So this assignment is, this assignment is for recursion. You've got some code here. We're going to load the library, go through some exercises here. Here's what is the value of factorial 3, 6, and then also implement a factorial function using recursion. And luckily I've got some code that I can just cut and paste in here. Okay, we'll run that. There's a little sanity check, looks okay. And then also implement a factorial function using the iterative approach. And I don't have that code with me right now, so I will cut and paste my recursive function in here. And it seems to work so far, and then I'll do a submission. Okay, and so when we submit, we make a copy of the student work area, send it over to the grading server, and then the grading server will automatically run a script, an nbgrader script against the student code. And so it will take a few seconds to run. And when it's done running, I will get a grade. You'll see that I passed test 1 and test 2 with full marks. I got 0 on test 3. You also see that I got some feedback from the autograder saying that my solution for the recursion factorial was correct, but for this iterative approach, I made some mistakes. Okay, and so we can go back and fix that if we'd like. Execute and do another submission. And again, it's going to go and evaluate my work and then provide some feedback. So this will take another few seconds. And so I got success, and then the grades will update in a second as well. Great. Okay, and so at this point, what I'd like to do is switch back over to instructor view. And when I do so, this part gets a little more interesting. So as an instructor, I have the ability to customize that learning experience, right? So for example, we can go and turn on this file browser, save it. And as Sanjay mentioned earlier, what that does is we will get, and I'm going to refresh this screen, get a view of the Vocarium file system. Okay, and so as Sanjay mentioned, there's the work area, which is you can act upon inside the Jupyter Notebook. This is the application area, right? But also it's got a log of all the submissions that I've done. Okay, and so I can go, and this is again, this is, as Sanjay mentioned, this is locked, right? So it's a read only. So I can go and see my, not the last submission, but the submission prior. And I can go and see what it is that that was graded, and I can go back to my current submission and do do some comparisons and whatnot, or copy code back and forth if I need to. Okay, so that's pretty convenient. If we go back again to the teacher area, we can go and let's turn off the file browser. We can also turn off the nav bar. Okay, and so when Vocarium assignments are embedded inside an LMS, this is automatically turned off. But if you're running Vocarium natively, like we are here, you can force the navigation bar off as well, and this will give you a more debranded look. Okay, and also give a little bit more real estate to the learner. Okay, and also if we switch back over to the teacher view here, if you wanted to add additional resources, as Sanjay was saying, if we want to add a database, for example, there's a few different databases that you can select, or if you wanted to add cloud labs, you can add cloud resources like AWS cloud resources. And when we do so, you'll also notice that we have additional layout options. So I'll turn back on the nav bar, but here we've got the start and stop control buttons. We turn on a timer for the lab, as well as see the budgets. When we have AWS or Azure, you've got you need to set a budget for the learners. And when we go and save it and switch back over to the learner environment, do a reload. Here you'll see that we have a new button on the upper left here, which is the AWS button with the red dot. That means the AWS lab hasn't started yet. We can go and click the start button to launch the lab. And when it's ready, we'll get some status and the red dot will turn green. You'll also see that the session timer will start, counting down from 1 hour, and then you can go ahead and launch into an AWS console with this button. So we're into a full native AWS environment. So if you need access to S3 or EC2 or other AWS resources, you can do so from using Boto 3 or from the console directly. Okay. There are also a couple more features that I wanted to share with you when it comes to managing your courses. So I'm going to end this lab. So as an instructor, you want to know what your students are working on or how they're progressing with the assignment. And so what we have is a new analytics option, and under analytics, under assignments, you can see how students are doing in a given assignment. So for example, we can go to this assignment, and we are sharing information about the average score for the 3 rubrics inside this assignment. How many attempts were made by learners to achieve their full marks, how many and when the submissions are made, number of submissions per day, number of students who started the assignments, as well as when they started it on days and what time they started their assignments. So we continue to extend this feature, and would love your feedback. If there's additional information or data that would be valuable to you. Finally, I wanted to share with you that we recently added a plagiarism detection for Jupyter Notebooks. So this can be found under Dashboard, Plagiarism, and is based on the Moss algorithm. And so you can specify what files to analyze, and we can start analysis. And what that will do is look at all the submissions across the class and compare the student work, and then also exclude starter code. If you wanted to upload some files from previous semesters, for example, you can do so. It'll take a few seconds to run, and at the end of it, we'll generate a report, and you can see how if there's any correlation with other students. So this is still running. So here's some results. And you'll see there's some matches between David Lin and David User, between Sanjay and David, and so on. Okay, so let's see. To recap, the Jupyter Elite provides you as an instructor with a lot of control over the learner's hands-on environment, including instructional panels, previous submissions, inline feedback, as well as NB extensions. And we've also extended the capability of platform to provide the analytics that we were showing, as well as the plagiarism detection for Jupyter Notebooks. Happy to answer any questions you may have. We didn't go much into some of the auto grading stuff for Jupyter Notebooks, but I think we've covered that in the past. If you want to go through some of that, happy to do so as well.